Welcome to Slasher Sunday. So I normally don't cover brand new movies on here, but this just so happened to fall on VOD on Friday. I needed a slasher for the Slasher Sunday, and I was like, you know what, screw it, man. I don't ever do it, but this will be fun. We're going to talk about a new movie, but before we get into spoilers, I promise I will give you fair warning before the spoilers get here. But if you're just here for a yay or a nay, first thing I will say is this is a haunt movie. You know, okay, it's called Haunt, obviously. I don't want to say it's a haunted house movie because that's tricky, because it's like, it's a ghost movie? No, it's not. It's a haunt. It's where you go and you pay money for people to bring you into these elaborate sets and they scare you with actors and whatnot. A haunted house, but it's a haunt, as the movie says. And so there's a group of 20-something-year-olds. They're out partying. They don't know what they're going to do for the rest of their night. They decide to go to a haunt. They go in. Things go horribly wrong. You know the story. These movies are being made all the time now. There's so many in the last few years. It's becoming its own subgenre. Can't call it the haunted house subgenre, though, so you'd have to call it like the haunt subgenre. But yeah, I mean, just last year alone, you had 3 freaking movies with almost the same title. They all had Fest at the end. You had Hellfest, Bloodfest, American Fright Fest. It was crazy. It was just like, wait, which fest is this? And then you had Hell House LLC Part 2. Like, you had a ton of these last year. And just in the last few years with Houses October Built 1 and 2 and the Hell Houses, as I said, and the list goes on and on. It's incredible. And you even have Hell House LLC coming out in like a week, I want to say, on Shudder. So these haunt movies are they're cranking these things out. I will say this is the best one I've seen. This is the top tier level of the haunt movies that have come out recently, which I'm very happy about, because I personally know someone who worked on this movie, who's an actor in this movie. He was a killer on the film. He was a killer in Strangers Prey at Night. His name is Damian Maffei, and we've been chatting privately about this movie and movies he's working on right now. And he was very proud of this. And you know, when you go into these kinds of movies and you know people who work on them, it's a little bit, there's a little pressure on it, because you're just like, oh shit, man, if I don't like this, fuck. But I would give you my honest opinion. There is no bias here, I promise you that. It would just be one of those things where I'd be like, sorry to say, man, I didn't like your movie. But thank God that didn't have to happen here. I also really enjoyed Strangers Prey at Night, so he's 2 for 2 on the films that he's made since I've known him, so that's fantastic. Keep that up, so I don't have to ever tell you I didn't like your movie. So, all right. Now, one thing before we get into spoilers, I feel like, okay, here's some pros to it that I think a lot of people will like. The kills are on screen. Now, a little bittersweet kind of thing for that. While they are on screen, some of them utilize a little bit of CG to add effect to it. And it's a lot of, like, as Lee McCoy from Drum Dums put it when I watched his review, he said, blunt force trauma. There is a lot of that. But it does show it, and it can be fairly brutal at times. And there is one kill that I thought was pretty gnarly, and I was really happy with it. I thought it was pretty vicious, and it looked great. So there are good kills here, which is a big plus when you're making a slasher movie. That's how you get your slasher fan base excited. There is no nudity, so if there is someone looking for that, we don't get any of that. But this film wouldn't really call for it. I don't see any place where it would be warranted. I mean, I'm not going to complain if one of the girls just in the middle of doing it was just like, and here's my tits, for no reason. I mean, I guess it could be one of the slutty girls in the movie, like the stereotypical character, the slutty girl, like flashes her friends or flashes the clown. I guess you could insert it there, like where one of the clowns is scaring them, and they're just, the girl's like, oh yeah, you think you're so tough, like what do you think of these? You could have those kinds of typical moments, and I'm not gonna be upset with it. But as I said, there's no real point to any of it here, so I'm fine with there not being any of that. But because those are slasher tropes, and those are things that appease slasher fans, gore, and T and A. Those are kind of like the, the two elements to any slasher film. I will say what is here and what isn't here. I think a con for some people, I thought it was maybe a little overdone at times, but how it ends up actually all made it work, and that was the character development of our main girl here in the film. I do think there's going to be slasher fans, because there's a lot of slasher fans that I have spoken to many times, just having a channel. You see it in the comment threads. I've talked in Facebook groups for years and so on and so forth. And there are a good group of people who are just like, fuck character development. I don't care about characters. I just want to see tits and I want to see blood, and that's that. And if that's the kind of person you are, you're gonna roll your eyes and not like these kinds of sequences. I don't feel like they're over long, but there is one little segment in this very middle of the movie where everything kind of just slows down, and it's her talking to her friend about her past with her father and stuff, that I do think some people will be like, oh, I don't care, shut up, you take off your top, whatever, like something stupid like that. But hey man, if that's you, that's fine. It's just, I personally enjoyed it, and I thought it made the payoff at the end worth it, because I felt the weight of what all that meant when the ending does happen, and I was very satisfied with the ending of this movie. I could compare it to another movie, but I'm not going to, because that would get into spoilers. And that said, now I'm actually going to get into spoilers. So I do recommend this movie. It's $5.99 right now on Vudu and Amazon and wherever you rent your stuff. And so go check it out. I definitely recommend it. Now let's get into spoilers. All right, so I should have said this before the spoiler thing, but this was written by the guys who did A Quiet Place, or the people. I don't know if these are men or women, doesn't really matter, but people who wrote Quiet Place, and was produced by Eli Roth. I don't know how much involvement he had with this film. I don't know if it was just money. I don't know if it was just promotion. I don't know if it was just to use his name. I don't know. But hey man, he's giving back, because I can tell you right now, the reason that Hostel got as much attention on it as it did is because it said Quentin Tarantino presents. And in fact, you got to be real careful when you get into doing something like that, because there were plenty of people, and this has happened on multiple films that I've talked to just general audiences, and they're like, oh man, Hostel was the worst movie Quentin Tarantino ever made. And I was like, he didn't direct it. And they're like, what? He didn't? It says his name on it. And I'm like, oh wow, that's wow, okay. So you don't look into any of that. You just see the name up there. And I get that. Looks like John Carpenter's Halloween or whatever. Wes Craven's New Nightmare. You would assume, right? So it says presents, but the general audience doesn't know what that means. I mean, I've talked to plenty of people who thought Steven Spielberg directed Transformers, because it says Steven Spielberg presents. And it's, when you put your name up there like that, man, you better understand what that attachment means. So there probably will be a good amount of people who think this, it does say produced by, but they see Eli Roth, they that he's a director, and it does. I mean, when you put your name on the front of movies like that, it can get a little tricky, especially with the presents, because I don't think people understand what presents means. All right, so we got our main girl here, and she has an abusive boyfriend. And I thought that was actually going to play into the film more than it did, because at first I was like, well, this is a good thing to have in your corner, some possessive, violence-prone dude who wants to, knock people around and whatnot. So when he gets sent out the information of where they're located, I was like, oh, this is the one good time an abusive boyfriend's going to come in handy. That being said, for the most part, most abusive boyfriends or husbands or whatever are total pussies. They're bullies. They're people who like to beat up on people that are weaker than them. And, when it comes to an actual fight against someone their own size, their own strength, they'll back down in a second. Not all of them, but the good majority of them. There's a reason they're beating up on their girlfriend, because they can't beat up on anyone else. But for this guy, he actually looks like a guy who might be able to, hold his own, but he doesn't do shit. I was like, oh wow, they killed him off like that. And now, while that does add, I feel like his story does add to her arc, because she does have a very good arc in this movie. As I said before in the spoiler-free part, there will be people like, I don't care. I don't care about her abusive father and her mother and going back to her house and how she looks at her house like a haunted house now and she has dreams and who cares? You know, it's like, I do. I like that it starts with her abusive boyfriend and that she's kind of, that's very typical, unfortunately, is women or, young girls who are raised around abusive households like that where women, let or tolerate abuse from their spouse, and then the kids grow up thinking that's what they're worth, that's normal, that's okay, that can be okay. I mean, my dad did it. I mean, my dad's the most important male figure in my life, and he beat my mom up. I mean, I guess that's love, right? So, unfortunately, a lot of the times, not every time, of course, I try not to generalize, but for a lot of the times, that is what ends up happening. And so she has an abusive boyfriend, and she has to have her friend come in, and her friend is being a little pushy with her advice and actually tries to take her phone and break up with her. Bad idea, okay? One other thing I'm very, very good with outside of movie knowledge and whatnot is relationship advice. I've been a hairdresser for 15 years. I've been listening to relationship stories forever, and I kind of understand the ins and outs of most of them, and you cannot force people into understanding what's right and what's wrong. That just unfortunately just doesn't work. They have to figure it out for themselves. You can be there and you can support them, but that tough love shit, when they're already in a weakened place like that ain't gonna work. It's just gonna push them further, and it's gonna push them closer, because that guy, as much as you hate what he's doing to her, at the very least, he always accepts her back in, because it's a manipulation. It's, bringing this person down so that they need them always. And then the friend is rejecting them, so they run away. Okay, we're not here to give relationship advice, but this is a terrible idea. Don't ever do that. I get it. You want to be firm and you want to be the strong person for them, but that almost never works, especially yanking their phone and being, it's over. She does end up pushing send on it and pushing it through to him. But I guarantee you, there's a 99% chance that if this night didn't go the way that it did, that she probably would have went back to him. Because that's not finality. That's not her making an actual decision. That's just her being rash in the moment to try to appease her friend, to try to get some kind... Okay, as I said, we're not getting into this. See, this is what I do at work all day, so... All right, moving on. Shit, I gotta make sure this thing's actually recording, because last time I didn't have audio, and it's because this damn thing switched over. So annoying. All right, so she goes to the bar with her friends after, and she meets this real cute guy, and of course that's gonna pull her out of her funk, right? And so they decide, hey, let's go to this haunted house. And here's a slight issue I have. I don't really understand how this is possible, but outside, when she's waiting for her ride share, she sees the devil, played by Damian Maffei. And then they just jump in their car randomly, and they end up at this haunted house that he just so happens to be at as well. So he's stalking her, but then she just randomly happens upon his place. No. I mean, I don't see how. I mean, did they find a flyer? They were just looking up random ones in the area, and they just happened upon this one. They pull the car over because she thinks that she sees her boyfriend following them in a truck that looks very familiar, looks very similar to the one that Damien drives in Strangers Pray at Night. I mentioned that to him, and he was like, oh, that wasn't intentional, but it is the same people who worked on the cars in both movies. So I was like, is that the same truck? Anyways, I think they're both red, are they? It looks exactly the same in my memory, but I could be completely off. Shit, the other one could be blue for all I know. But it did look like a very similar truck. But yeah, they just pull over, and then the sign lights up, haunted house, and then the sign kind of some of the lights dim and it just says Haunt, which is the title of the film. Reminds me of something like Motel Hell, when the O goes out on the sign. And so, yeah, all right. So they go up in there, and I thought that the interaction with the clown face, masked dude in the opening with his hand trick in the rubber gloves, and he opens and there's nothing in either, and then he does like the key behind the ear trick. I thought that was great. I loved the tension built in that scene, the creepiness, the eeriness, just kind of the unsettling nature of it all, just like priming them for what they're about to get themselves into. I just thought that was a really well executed scene. It just made them kind of uncomfortable, but they're still in that mindset of like, oh, this is all fake. And I really thought that this was a very smart way to get their cell phones out of the picture, because as I've always said, like, pretty much since I've started the channel, because cell phones have been around since I've been talking about films on here, that's one of the biggest issues with making films now, is like people have phones on them at all times. Why can't they just call the police? And many, the writers have to get very creative with that kind of stuff. And sometimes they say, the obvious one is no signal. That's the one that they use. That's like the easy one everyone goes for. Then there's also, I've seen all sorts of good ones. I've seen all sorts of different clever ones, like the one in Funny Games where he knocks her phone off into the water, or all sorts of cool ones. But I really liked this. I like how they just, the writers knew, how do we get rid of their cell phones? Okay, it's part of it. They have to give away their cell phones so that, they don't take pictures in there or whatever. Like, there would be easy reasons to say that. I've went into movies. I've had to go to premieres where they take your phones from you because they're like, you can't film the film. So, yeah, makes perfect sense. And then they go in, and as I said, I loved how cheap the haunted house was. Now that does speak to the budget, but it also feels very realistic. When they go inside, it's just like a fake, Walmart skeleton on a spring. It's very cheap shit. In fact, I'm surprised they didn't mention the quality of the place. Like, I feel like they should have been like, man, this place is bullshit. This place is cheap as fuck. Like, none of them ever questioned the production value of the haunt. But there was no one else there. It was up in the middle of the nowhere, so I don't know what else they would be expecting. So I guess they were just kind of going along for the ride there. Then they walk through a spinny room. Now there's a bridge, and there's this shit going around it. Let me tell you something. I have an issue with my inner ear, and it makes me extremely dizzy all the time. I walked into one of those recently. There's one at Castles and Coasters here in Phoenix. They have a very tiny little fun house. It's seriously like you walk through that thing, and then you walk around, and then you're out, and it costs like a couple bucks. It's the cheapest shit you've ever seen in your life. But I walked through there, and I'm telling you, I've never been so dizzy and disoriented in my entire life. I was walking through there with my kids, and they were freaking out, and I was freaking out because I wasn't like freaking out like my brain couldn't take it, like, but my body, my eyes, my equilibrium, nothing could take it. I felt like I was gonna vomit. I felt like I was gonna pass out. And so I like closed my eyes and like ran through there, and it was like wobbling all over the place. It was the most horrible I've ever felt. And my kids were back there, and they were screaming and they were crying because I left them. It's only like a 10-foot walkway. I just thought they were walking with me. I was like, come on, girls, come on, I can't. And so like, it's not like I just was like, fuck you guys, and I pushed them over, and it was like, every man for himself. It wasn't like that. But I went in and I ran. I walked fast. Like, I was like, girls, come on. I can't do dad can't do this. Like, I'm going to black out. And they were fine. There wasn't like a monster chasing us or anything stupid. So we walked forward. I'm like having guilt right now, reflecting on this story, thinking like I ditched my kids. But I didn't. I just walked forward like 5 feet. And then I realized like they weren't with me. So like I turned around and I saw them, and I was so fucked up. And so I had to close my eyes and walk back and grab them and like kind of bring them back. I came out of there, and I seriously wanted to burn the thing to the ground so that no one ever would feel like I just did in that moment. So it just took me back. When I saw that, I was like, that's the fucking scariest thing in this movie. Ever going through that. I don't know if you could pay me enough money to ever walk through one of those. Like, if you want to torture me worse than ever, like, make me just stay in a room like that. You know, and like freaking Clockwork Orange my eyes open. I would be vomiting within like 30 seconds. Oh, it was horrible. All right. Moving on. And then they get into the coffins. And I like that now before this, they walk through a bunch of spider webs, which actually wouldn't really make sense because they'd have to, every single time people walk through, they'd have to put up new spider webs for them to walk through. So, but no one else has been there that day. So I guess they're the first ones and they're the only ones, because that would get real expensive real quick. But yeah, so they walk through and then they realize there's actual spiders in there, which they don't really make a big deal of. And one of the girls, the first girl to die, who I actually thought was the hottest girl in the movie, not saying that the rest, they're all very good looking women. All four of them are very attractive. But I personally thought this first girl who dies is the most attractive, most of my type. She has like a bug in her hair. She actually has a spider in her hair. And I thought that was going to come into play. I thought she was going to be like, oh, what the fuck? Like, finally it was going to come on her face. Come onto her face. That was a Freudian slip there. But I really did. I thought it was going to attack her face at some point in the movie. And it never did. It just never came up again. And I was like, oh, okay, that was weird to show that. Like, they didn't make a big deal of that. They were like, oh my God, there are real spiders in here. And the girls should have freaked out. And they just didn't. Even though there was a fucking spider right here on her hair next to her face, it never came back into play in the movie. And I was like, okay, so that whole spider setup and real spiders in there. I mean, it did then when they got into the coffins. So they went into the coffins one by one. It activated a hidden door so they could go through. None of them tried the other two doors, but whatever. So there was the one. I don't know why there even had to be three. It should have just been one. But so they go in there, and one goes through, and then the third, the hot girl, she goes through. Well, they're all hot, but the hottest girl goes through, and she's sitting in there, and she's waiting, and she's like, what the hell? And then this little thing opens up, and spiders start pouring. So now the first one is real. You can see it crawling. And then when they pour it through, they're all fake spiders. But I guess that plays into the real spiders from earlier. But as I said, why put the one in her hair if she's never even going to actually notice it's there? It was an odd choice. Nothing a knock, just kind of a, huh? Okay, whatever. Moving on. So there you go. I thought that the coffin thing was pretty cool. And then there's this like makeshift air duct that they have to crawl through. Come on out to LA, have a laugh. Anytime I see an air duct, that's what I got to think of Die Hard. Reminds me of the freaking Die Hard 2, Die Harder, which is still one of the dumbest freaking subtitles of any movie ever. So stupid. Die Harder. You haven't died hard enough yet. And you know that they kicked around Die Hardest for the third one, but Die Hard with a Vengeance. Oh my God, how much I love that movie. But Die Hardest would have been pretty funny. But then with the fourth one, what would they have called it? Die Harder Than Hardest? But yeah, so they're going through I was going to talk about the scene in part 2 when he's like, how can the same fucking guy get in the same fucking way? I can't remember the line right now. All right, moving on. I just love movies. I can't not, like, just go off on some tangent and go completely off on some other film. And I just want to talk about that film for, another 20 minutes. But I really do rein myself back in. All right. Another thing I really liked about this movie is that there are no fake stingers, so there's no big loud sounds when people fake scare each other. And then there's actually a good fake out scare in this movie. Holy shit, it actually happened. It's not the first to ever pull it off, but it's one of the only ones I've ever seen actually pull off a good fake out scare. I can't fucking believe it. So they have to put their arms through these holes and to feel what part of the body is. I don't know exactly what this was going to be. Was it a puzzle? Was it what? Because the first girl pulls out what looks like maybe spaghetti, so that's intestines. And then the next guy grabs a grape, which he eats, which is disgusting, but whatever. I'm guessing that has to be an eyeball, much like in Ernest Scared Stupid with peeled grapes. Oh my God, where are my eyeballs? My eyeballs! And then he hits her in the face with a mop, a wet one. God, I love Ernest Scared Stupid so fucking much. All right, anyway. But then the third girl, the third hole, the girl goes in and she puts her arm in there and she's feeling, she can't feel it, she can't feel nothing. And then the guy comes and he's feeling, because she loses the mom's ring and she's freaking out, she's reaching back there. And so the guy puts his arm in and he has a fake out scare. And then he tries it again, but the fake out scare does not come with a stinger, which I was very impressed with, because sometimes you do the fake out scares, whatever, but if you don't put the loud music in there, I'm okay with it. But then he tries it again, and I'm thinking, oh Jesus, here we go again. And while he's doing it, she's screaming, and you think she's screaming because he's doing it and she's being scared by what he's doing. But when he starts laughing and you're like, oh fuck, here we go, another joke, another bullshit fake out, because there is music at this point, but the music actually applies here because she is actually being attacked, and we realize she's not scared by what he's doing, she's scared because someone's grabbing onto her arm and slicing her up under there. So a brilliant fake out scare. I was actually very impressed by this. I grabbed my nose there, so it sounded like I was like, but yeah, very impressed by that fake out scare. Fucking nose itches like crazy. Everyone's gonna think I'm on coke again. I've never done coke in my goddamn life, and I'm tired of defending it. Although I haven't defended it in a long time, so I must be on coke again because I'm defending it now. Damn. Why do I have tells on my lies? But yeah, man, just like. The slits, I thought this was cool, even though it's CG, I don't care. But she has the slits on her arms, and then she pulls it out and she looks at it and there's nothing there, and she's like, oh, it hurts. And then boom, just blood starts pooling. Now, as a hairdresser, I've cut myself a lot, just over the years. You cut yourself every time you get your shears sharpened, every single time. In fact, I used to have a guy who would come around and he would sharpen them. And he would, not jokingly, because you really didn't need them, but he would always like almost comedically attack a Band-Aid with it when he gave them to you, because you always cut yourself because you're used to your shears being dull, because they go dull every like 3 to 6 months. And, so you get real loose with them and you'll actually hit your finger and they won't cut them. And that's kind of when you know it's time to go. And so when you get them, you always cut yourself like within a day or two. It just happens every time. But when you do cut yourself with something that's really sharp, and this is my example, there's plenty of other examples, but this happens to me personally, throughout my career. I've probably cut myself 50, 60 times. You hit yourself and nothing's there. And you're like, okay. And you go back to work. Every single time you think, it's not going to bleed. It's not going to bleed. It's good. This one's not going to bleed. And every once in a great while, it doesn't bleed. But almost every time, it does. It just starts going and you're like, fuck, I'm on a time, you're on a time constraint. You're like, I don't want to fucking stop, because you actually have to stop and you have to do a procedure. You have to clean it. You have to, whatever. There's a whole thing to it. And I'm like, no, fuck. I don't got time for this. You're just looking at it and you're like this and that. So like to see her blood actually form and come out, I'm like, oh man, I've had that happen, just not in this way, thank God. But little pro tip out there for any hairdressers that are thinking about getting into it: if you even nick an ear, it will never stop bleeding, ever. Fucking ears, man. Fucking ears. I've hit people's ears maybe 2 or 3 times in my career. Just a little tip, just the teeniest little. And this shit will bleed and bleed like you fucking hit their jugular vein, and it will never ever stop. Ears are fickle sons of bitches. Anyway. Woo! So then, so the first time they see this girl, she gets her face burned, and because it's CG, I think it actually like burns through her cheek. It's real quick, but it did look like it actually was so hot it actually pierced the skin and went through into her mouth. It's like fast, blink and you miss it kind of thing, but it did look like it did that, and I was like, oh shit, that's brutal. And the girl that's on the ground that's getting her face burned looked like she was pretty damn beautiful too. So what a damn shame. But then the hot girl of the group, the hottest girl of the group, she gets taken, she's on display, and then boom, they freaking kill her right in front of them. And at what point do they know this is real? Obviously, when they cut her arm, I don't know. Like, are they 100% something's up? They know something's up, but do they just think that there was a malfunction inside of there, or do they think that there's more sinister things going on at play? The reason I ask this is because it is possible, I suppose, that something was in there, but she said she felt someone back there, so I would think instantly I'd be like, no, someone's fucking with you. But then the guy who they get they talk to, he is like, it's a very interesting character in a movie like this. They're usually like, like, oh, you're trapped now, you're fucked now, whatever. They get very sinister in those moments. But this guy's like, oh my God, are you okay? And oh, this wasn't supposed to happen. And he's very genuine. And you think like, oh shit, this guy's actually helping. And then later in the movie, you have another character like this. And you're like, wait, okay, is he or is he not? But because his face is not mutilated or deformed, purposely deformed though, not birth defect deformed. I guess maybe he isn't actually with these people because all the other ones who the killers seem to actually be. But this guy does get himself killed. He's shot through the head. So I don't know why they would hire somebody else who isn't part of their crew like that. I guess every once in a while you got to recruit. Like, that's how you meet these people. So this guy didn't make the cut, and so he was let go. Consider that a divorce. Still one of the coldest lines in film history. What movie? All right. And so yeah, they find that they're cut, this and that. And then the comedic relief goofy friend guy is trying to pick a lock, and he actually says, I'm not Robert De Niro from Heat. Now, it's been a while since I've seen Heat. I absolutely love Heat. I think it's one of the greatest movies ever made. Honestly, I'd put it in like the top 50 for sure. I think it's one of the all-time greatest, classics of all films. It's been a while since I've seen it. I don't remember De Niro picking any locks in that movie. I mean, this film definitely wears its horror influences and its film influences on its sleeve. There's references throughout, whatnot. But does De Niro actually like lockpick in that movie, in Heat? Like, it's a very interesting, because it's so specific. He's like, I'm not De Niro in Heat. And I guess maybe he does, but it's a 3-hour fucking movie, and it's been years since I've seen it. But I remember them blowing the lock off of the truck, which deafens everyone inside. I remember him going up for Waingro, but I think Waingro's like, he kicks the door in or whatever. Like, I don't remember him ever actually picking a lock. I know this is a silly critique, but when he said it, I was like, does he ever pick a lock in that movie? Because there's so many other characters that we know. I mean, you could say, I'm not Sarah Connor in Terminator 2. We know she picks locks. She puts the damn thing in her mouth and she picks that lock very professionally. Or freaking, Paul Sheldon in Misery. That's how he gets in and out of his room. I'm not Paul Sheldon from Misery. That one seems a little off. So Sarah Connor in Terminator 2. I don't know. The De Niro one. I don't know. I spent way too much time on this. But I remember him actually like getting out a lockpick set and picking locks. I mean, I know he's a bank robber. He's a robber. But does he pick locks? Please remind me. It could be completely misremembering a moment. So if you did, then it's fine. But it's not memorable. It's not a memorable lockpicking scene. I'm going to tell you that. Because I would remember it. I've seen the movie a few times. And I love the shit out of it. So there you go. Anyway, okay, so another girl puts her hand out and she gets stomped on. That was a good moment right there to use some practical effects and to add to that like factor of the film. Because when he stepped on the hand, she could have pulled that back and her hands could have been like completely mutilated. Her fingers could have been broken upwards and all sorts of stuff. So I think that was kind of a missed opportunity. It's a brutal one. The sound design is good on it. It does feel like a good stomp. Her fingers do kind of bend there. So it does feel like it, but when she pulls it back, she just kind of holds it close. And it's like, that would have been a good time to like show your mangled hand. So I think that is kind of a little bit of a missed opportunity. I like that the baseball outfit wearing hot dude that she meets, I didn't write anyone's names down as usual. He uses a key as a brass knuckle. That's a good thing to keep in mind. Ladies, if you're ever walking to your car, I'm sure you already know this one, but take your keys, put them through your fingers like Wolverine, and if anyone comes, you got a little more bite to your punch. And oh man, the pitchfork through the face, as I said, added CG elements, but it still looks good. It's noticeable, but I like it. Like, I'll take that over not seeing it any day of the week. So put on screen kills. Now, I say that, but I'll preface that by saying not too much. Okay, if it's too much CG, if it's like blatant, like bad, then I would rather not see it. But if it's passable, if it's good, if, practical would be better. But I don't know. I mean, it's hard to show a face with a freaking thing going through it and actually make it look like the person's face and do it practically. You can't really. So this is a meet in the middle ground kind of kill, and I liked it. I thought it was like, oh wow, that was kind of brutal. So I dug that. And then the whole, like, the faces under the mask were nuts. I talked to Damien about this. I was like, dude, because he's under the devil one, and he has like the black eyes and the bulges in his face and the piercings, and I was like, what the fuck, dude, that was you? I was expecting to see his actual face in here if he took off the mask, but he did, and I was like, is that Damien? Like, I know he was the devil, but I was like, is that him? Holy shit, it looks nothing like it. It's crazy. He said he spent like 3 hours in makeup every day that they shot with him like that. And I was like, holy shit, that was incredible makeup there, because it really did look like someone who made alterations to their face like that. I was very impressed by that, but fucking freaky, man. Like, the masks, this is one of the very rare times where the masks are actually way less creepy than the faces actually underneath. The faces underneath are way scarier than the mask. You got Halloween, the original Halloween. She pulls off the mask, and underneath is freaking Tony Moran's goofy face. Like, he doesn't look all that threatening. They made his eye all messed up because she's, poked him in the eye and whatever. But outside of that, it's just, he's kind of silly. Nick Castle probably would have looked even goofier, but regardless, it just looks like some normal dude, which actually adds to the scariness of that movie. I'm not taking that as a knock. I'm just using it as an example. But typically underneath, Jason, on the flip side of that, is a great example of when you pull off the mask and there's something much scarier underneath. But usually it's just a normal guy under the masks. And then I liked in this, I just thought it was going to be regular guys. That's what I was expecting. I was expecting a Michael Myers situation under there. And it wasn't. These guys were freaky as fuck. It was like, put your mask back on. Put your creepy ass mask back on. It's way better to look at than what I'm dealing with here. And so even though the one dude, because I love when he went outside with the guy and he's like, do you still want to see my face? And he's like, what? He's like, do you still want to see my... I love that. I love the drawn out stuff in this. Like, as I said, with the keys in the hands, the do you want to see my face multiple times. Like, no fucks are given by these guys. And they're just mentally fucking with these people, which is scarier than anything. That guy looked like freaking Mason Verger from, Gary Oldman character from Hannibal. His face was fucked. He had probably the scariest face in the movie. It was wild looking. I was like, what in the hell is that thing? Well, it kind of almost looked like, what is that guy's? Nah, it doesn't matter. From the Wrong Turn movies, like the third, three fingers or fuck, I can't remember his name. I covered that franchise maybe almost 2 years ago now on my channel. I did all 6, but he kind of looks like him. Anyway, freaky ass looking face. And then the hammer under the lip and the tear of the lip and his nose and everything up. That was beautiful. Just fucking gorgeous. That was the premier kill in the film. That's what I was referencing earlier. I'm sure hopefully you've seen the movie, but fucking A, that was beautiful. I need to hurry this up, man. We're 40 minutes into this shit. Holy hell. How the hell are we 40 minutes in? I don't feel like I've been talking that long, but holy fuck. Why doesn't he grab the phone when it's right there on the table? It doesn't really matter. He gets it later. I'm guessing he didn't want to let in that he was in there because the person would come back in and be like, where's the missing phone? Now I got to look for it. So I can excuse that one away. And the girl steps on the nail, it goes through her foot. Her foot would be absolutely fucked. I've actually done that one time in the backyard of my house when I was a kid in Huntington Beach. It didn't go all the way up through my foot, but it went into my foot. My foot was fucked for a while, man. So she would be absolutely limping. Now, I didn't keep a good enough eye, but I guess adrenaline would surge through her pain and make her a little more active. But her foot would be absolutely destroyed for weeks. Oh, it's so painful. Especially hers went up and through. And then her hands stick to the ground and she peels them and rips the skin away from. Holy shit, man, that was another thing where her hands and one of her, a foot of hers, one of her feet was just destroyed. That's such a disadvantage because she can't grab anything. She can barely walk. This freaking girl, man, she's a trooper. And then she has to go. Now, this is something weird. She has to use a mirror to read on the wall. And I know a lot of people struggle with this, but I actually can read. I don't know if this is a talent. I guess it is. But I actually can read words that are written backwards just as well as I can read words forward. Now, I know your first thought is like, well, then this guy can't really read very well, which isn't exactly false. But I can read pretty well. But I can read just as well forward or backwards. So when words are reversed and you have to look in a mirror to look at them, like the scene in The Shining, if I was in the theater in 1980, I'd be like, that says murder. Like I can easily read words backwards instantly. It's not difficult for me. Now they do try to trick you in that movie and put the first letter frontwards so you don't look at it to read it backwards. But that said, anytime they do that in movies, she has to pull out the thing and look. Like, I read it instantly. As soon as she looked at it, I was like, blah, 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 whatever it was that was written there. And then she saw another one, and I read it, this and that. But she had to use a mirror. And I guess I don't know. You guys, can you read backwards? I don't know. I never found that to be all that difficult. All right. Then the guy comes in, Damien comes in, he's fighting her, this and that, and then she stabs him in the eye with the key, which I thought was fucking great. And she puts the lock in, and it's like a sawtooth trap where there's a gun behind the door and it blasts, and I guess she gets out of the way, but it hits her in the shoulder, though it's a shotgun from a distance, so the spread should have spread it out, unless it's like like a slug, and it's just like one, but I don't know, whatever, doesn't matter. But then she goes down, and I would feel like that guy would know that when the music's playing, he probably shouldn't have his head up and he shouldn't be in that hallway. And then once he's shot, then she walks towards the gun as the music's going again, and then it just doesn't go off. So I thought that was all very dumb. Like, I thought it's a fine scene, but I just thought that the way that they both handled it was idiotic. They both knew what was going to happen. Like, he knew it because he worked there or he set that up, whatever. And then she knew, because this has happened now for the third time, she knows that a gun's going to go off when the music starts cranking again. So maybe walk along the wall, maybe stay low, why just walk right at the thing? So that scene was a little frustrating to me. And then she kills her friend, which this is overplayed, but I do feel like it's still an effective thing because the guilt. Imagine the fucking guilt you would feel if you killed your friend and then to reflect on it later in life, especially with somebody who grew up with a tragic story like that, and she already holds enough guilt and enough, shit in her head. So then to have I killed my friend, maybe if I would have been paying better attention, and that even makes it harder to pull the trigger the next time, which it doesn't for her, but it usually would. It would be like, oh my God, I have to have more restraint the next time, otherwise I'm going to kill my friends. And then the dude dies, the ex-boyfriend who shows up. I guess he doesn't think they're broken up, but she does. And he shows up and he gets killed instantly. And he just leaves his truck running out there. Bullshit. He just leaves his truck running on the side of the road. And how did he get in there if there is a fence everywhere and he just got in the back door? They had to jump a barbed wire fence, but did he? So I'm unsure on that. Did I miss something there? They have to he grabs a blanket out of the car, he throws it over the fence, which I thought was smart. I was like, oh cool, he actually was practical about it. He went the Tyler Durden route where they throw up the thing over it. I've seen it in plenty of other movies as well. But and then he grabs the baseball bat and he claps the guy over the head. I thought that was all great, but the guy shoots him. I don't know why he would shoot him in the side instead of the other one, because earlier in the movie, he shoots him in the head. So he's got aim. If that's the same guy, no, maybe it's not the same killer. Can't remember. Oh, I love that they double team the witch girl, because I thought her character was really cool, and they smashed the trap door on her head until oh, that was great, man. Great double team kill there. But then he takes the guy out with the baseball bat after being shot in the side, and then they run off and they jump the fence, which, as I said, is that fence not there for the other? I don't know, whatever. So then they jump into his truck. Bullshit. He just leaves his truck on the side of the road. Yeah, right. And then they're in the hospital, and then she realizes, oh no, I gave out my address. I guess she gave out her parents' address. That looked like that's the parents' house, right? And I love this ending. Very, like, it reminds me of the collection, part 2 of the Collector franchise. The Collected is supposedly in pre-production, so let's hope that actually happens. But yeah, the collection at the end with Arkin, I'm not going to get into spoilers, but if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. I love that she sets up some like Home Alone type shit for him, and he comes through and his feet get stuck, and then his hands get stuck, and it's like Retribution. Although it's in reverse, because it's her hands that get stuck and then her foot that goes through. So I just thought of that right now. It's actually the exact opposite of what she had to go through. One is much more painful than the other, though, so he kind of got off light with that. But then he does get shot in the face. But she comes out, and I love that this is her triumphant return home. Like, she's been terrified of this place forever because of the men in her life. She's been very docile and afraid of these men in her life, her father, her boyfriend, all these people. And this shit, she has this arc. She builds herself up. She gets her courage back in a horrible way, unfortunately, but it does. It gets her back her power, and she returns home with a vengeance. I love that she comes home and she destroys the evil in her life. She like expunges it. There's this man after her, and she executes him in the house that she was too afraid to return to. It's very like symbolic and metaphorical, if you will. And I don't know if that's the intention they had there or whatever, and people would roll their eyes maybe at that kind of stuff, but it's a cool thing to think about. And I love that. I love that arc of her, that she comes back. She's that badass final girl, that she's killing people right and left. Now, why they get the one guy on the ground and don't take care of him and don't grab his gun and stuff like that, that's just that kind of stuff where it is frustrating, and I don't know why they do it when they have so many killers and they can just grab the gun and shoot that one, and there's, plenty other ones left. It's frustrating because they killed this one, so you're already deep into it. You might as well kill this one too. At this point, kill them all. So, little qualms here and there. Other than that, it's 50 freaking minutes into this review. I did not expect it to be this long, but and I don't even know if I hit all my notes. I don't know. What are your favorite scenes? Hopefully you watch this by now. If for some reason you're just watching this because you're trying to see if it was worth your time, I hope it was. I hope this has enticed you to go and rent the movie. Okay, go pay the money. These people put the money in. They deserve the money back. No torrenting, no judgment, but don't torrent. Okay. Anyway, guys. Let me know what you thought. This was the longest Slasher Sunday episode ever, I think. So, wow, I did not expect that. I think I've added like another minute just pointing out how long this is. So let's cut it off here. Adios.